All right, guys, welcome back to Crossman Productions. You guys, I am super excited about today. You guys know that I've been a big fan of a show called Vindication. As a matter of fact, I posted that earlier this week. I got to be on a Zoom call with the cast and crew of Vindication, and we've had several different cast members on the show. Venus Monique, Todd Terry. We've had Jared O'Flannery on, and of course we had Cameron Arnett. I just this is one of those shows that I started watching, and I couldn't stop. I just started binge watching, got to know some of the cast and crew of it, and just fell in love with it. So, from all that, I was able to get one of my favorite characters on the show. He plays the chief of police, who may be the villain, but he's a great guy. And I love the character he plays on this. So I wanted to bring on Steve Mokate. How's it going, brother?
Hey there. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. So, yeah, man. I've been following the show for a while. A couple of people here in Texas introduced me to the show. I was watching at the time, The Chosen, and one of the guys was in Chosen. He's like, "Hey, yeah, there's a new show called Vindication. Have you heard about it?" So they hooked me up with Venus. I brought Venus on, and I went and watched the show. Fell in love with the show. Through that, got to bring in a couple of different guests. But I'm excited to have you on because me, I like the villains in different in different shows. So, and you do a great job in playing the villain on the show. But I want to bring you in and introduce you to my audience. So go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and tell my audience kind of where you were born and raised, and what was life like for Steve growing up?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up. Well, I was born in Chicago.
Okay.
And most of my childhood years were in Florida, though. Clearwater, Florida. I lived in the Florida Keys for a little bit, but mostly in Clearwater, Florida. And then I went to college in Iowa, and I played football up there. That's what brought me from sunny, warm Florida up to Iowa. So I was up there for 4 or 5 years, and then I've been in Dallas ever since. I moved here in 1984. It's just been my home ever since.
Wow, cool. So, what was like? Did you move a lot? And did you get into like acting in school, or?
Yeah, I actually skipped over a lot. We moved a ton. I was born in Chicago, lived in the Illinois area, Indiana area, moved to California for a little bit, came back to Chicago, moved to Florida, moved back to Chicago, then moved back to Florida. I just didn't know if we had enough time to get into detail. But yeah, I moved a lot. My dad worked for Holiday Inn, and we shuffled around quite a bit. Didn't get into acting until I was 45 years old. I'm a late bloomer. Yeah, in college, I thought about doing it. Mm-hmm. We had a really good theater department. It's called Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa, and thought about getting into acting. But because I played football, those two worlds clashed socially and schedule-wise. It just didn't work out where I was able to pursue theater at that time. So I suppressed all that until I was 45 years old. And then I started dabbling as a background actor. I was on Prison Break for a couple seasons as an FBI guy. Didn't have any dialogue. I was just there in the background, FBI number 2 in the background doing whatever. I was learning the ropes, seeing how these guys hit their marks, how they delivered their lines, and kind of just learned the business over a couple seasons on breaking on that show. Right. And then I finally got an agent. I took a lot of classes. Did a 2-man play one time at a comedy house in Dallas. There was somebody in the audience who liked what I was doing. He contacted my now agent, Linda McAllister, told her to sign me, and she did. And that was the beginning of it. And now I have 4 or 5 agents, but that kind of got the ball rolling. You can't really do much until you have an agent. So that's what started it for me.
Oh, cool. So, do you remember your first major role where you had like actual lines?
Yeah, that'll probably be Hannah's Gold, which you can
Okay.
still rent on Amazon. It's a family film. Luke Perry was in it.
Right.
And yeah, that was definitely my first big type thing where I had a lot of dialogue. So yeah, it's a nice little movie. I watched it again just about a year ago, and it holds up. It's about 12 years old now, but it's still
Wow. Cool. So, what was that like, Joan, from like a background actor into actually having roles, and eventually expanded to you having a lead role?
Oh, it was nerve-wracking. I
Mm.
remember when I was a background actor on Prison Break, I'd be standing there with no responsibility other than just looking like an FBI guy.
Right.
I'd see these actors come on set, these day players come on with all this dialogue. I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's got to be so nerve-wracking for them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, there I was. And I was in that movie,
Right.
Hannah Gold, and I had a ton of dialogue. And it brings you to a whole nother level for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, nerves-wise, and just making sure you're prepared and memorizing your lines, learning your lines, just being in the moment and nailing the role. It's a lot different than being a background actor. Yeah.
Right. So now, how long have you been? So you've been acting since you were 45.
Yeah.
So
So I'm 63 now. So
okay.
yeah, I've
Uh,
been doing it for not too long. Like I know you had Todd Terry on not too long
right.
ago. He's been doing it since he was 12 years old or something
Wow.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm way behind experience wise with most people, but I'm catching up.
So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned so far?
Probably just being in the moment. I've said this on a few other podcasts, but you need to be in the moment. A lot of actors, they learn their lines and they can't wait to get out there and just say those words. And
Right.
meanwhile, they're not listening to their acting partner, the person in the scene with them. They're not paying attention to what they're saying. And you
Right.
can usually tell when someone's doing that. They're just waiting for the other person to stop talking so they can say their dialogue. But what happens is you're not in the moment. That's not real world. In real world, when someone's talking, usually anyway, you listen to them and then
Right.
you reply because you don't know how to reply until you know what they say. In the acting world, it's kind of cheating. You already know what you're going to say before they say what they're going to say.
Right.
So you really have to hide that. It's not easy to do in the beginning, especially when you're nervous. But yeah, live in the moment. Know your lines like the back of your hand for sure. Know your lines so well it's impossible not to remember them.
Right.
And then be in the moment. And when your time comes, you naturally just respond to your acting partner.
Cool. So do you have a technique that you use to memorize your lines?
Yeah, I learned this from a guy he's on soap operas. Soap operas, they have tons of dialogue every day. I mean, every day it's just a bunch of dialogue. So what he taught me was you get a tape recorder or you use your iPhone
Right.
and you say the other person's dialogue. You record the other person's dialogue, and then you pause for just enough time for where you could say your dialogue, and
Right.
then say their dialogue, and so on, going through the script.
Okay.
Then when you play it back, it's like you have a scene partner in the room with you.
Right.
They say their lines on the recorder, you say yours, and back and forth, and you just do that over and over and over. I used to be a runner, now I'm more of a walker. So when I walk, I just have my headphones on and I just listen
Right.
to the recording,
Okay.
their dialogue, my dialogue, their dialogue, and just over repetition.
Right.
The brain's a muscle. The more you work it, the better you're gonna be at it.
Okay. So have you ever like had somebody read with you? Like to kind of get to, we talk about getting in the moment. Like where they read the other lines and you kind of feed off of them and just see how a scene might play out?
You mean when I'm learning my lines? If I have someone
Yes.
with me, I mean, every now and then. Not more often, no. Though usually I use the tape recorder because I really don't have access to someone sometimes to do that with me, and I just kind of got used to using the tape recorder
Right.
technique, and it works for me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, like
Cool.
driving down the road. Just driving down the road, I have it playing through my radio. I'll be doing my dialogue as I'm driving, when I'm walking,
Right.
running, and it's just easier for me.
Cool. Okay. And so like when there's other people watching who's trying to get into the industry. What is your biggest advice to somebody who's never been in acting, who's trying to get into acting?
Well, you have to be resilient for sure,
Mhm.
because you're going to hear no most of the time.
Right.
Like I heard once, the average, if you can book 10 out of 100, you're considered elite.
Wow.
And I'm not near 10 out of 100.
Right.
I'm more like 3 or 4 of 100 auditions, but that's pretty bad right there. If success is considered 10%, that shows how difficult the industry is. So you have to be very resilient. You have to be able to handle the word no, not take it personal. I've auditioned for things before. I'm 6'3", white guy, and I'm fit, and then I didn't get the role, and then you see the TV show come on, and they have like a Korean guy who's 300 pounds. Wow. Sometimes it's not your ability; it's just your look. They went another direction,
right?
So be resilient for sure. But my number one advice that I give to younger people, especially getting into it, is to get a job that's flexible.
Right.
Because if you have a job that's paying the bills, keeping you afloat, car payment, putting a roof over your head, you can be an actor forever, because the industry is infinite. They need everything from babies to 100-year-old men. So there's no finish line. You can do this your entire life as long as you have a job that is keeping a steady flow of income coming in. That will keep you afloat. So most actors, the actors that real well, the A-listers, they don't have second jobs, but almost every other actor out there has a second job. Some people sell real estate, or they're servers, they do yard care. Most actors have a day job, almost every one of them, except for the elite that we all know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's tough to get to that, to that upper level where you can make, job out of being an actor.
Yeah.
One of the things too that I really like about how things have happened since COVID is there's so much new technology, and you have a lot of filmmakers, independent filmmakers, who's coming out, who's actually starting to do films. What's your thought on that?
Oh, I think that's fantastic for everyone. Right. It just creates more jobs. The only problem is with a lot of those, they're not SAG, and I'm a SAG actor, so a lot of those things I'm not allowed to do. But overall, I think it's great for an industry. It gets actors more experience, get their resume bumped up a little bit. So yeah, overall, it's a great thing. Before I was SAG, I used to do a lot of those independent type things, but now I'm not allowed to.
Right. So, of all the films you did, what was the toughest role that you've had?
I don't know. Any of them have really, physically tough was The Hunt. I was in a movie called The Hunt. It's a Universal Studios. It's on Amazon and Peacock right now. It was only difficult in that it was kind of physical, because I got beat up. Bad over and over. They keep doing several takes, and I get beat up just as bad every take. That was hard physically, especially because I was 61 years old, I think, at that point. So, the bruises and the bumps and everything are a little bit worse when you get to be 60 years old. But mentally tough, Vindication was tough a couple times because Jared gave me a ton of dialogue. I had there was one episode where I just had like 2 or 3 pages of dialogue, and it was just me talking. So that was a little difficult because I'd never done that before. But using that tape recorder technique I told you about earlier, it worked out. I was able to nail it. So I've really never had a really bad experience on a set that I can think of. There's been times I could not pronounce a word correctly, and that was embarrassing. Congratulations was a word I couldn't say once on a TV show. I just kept saying it over and over and over. It didn't even sound like the word congratulations. I don't even know what my brain was doing. And they just moved on and skipped that whole scene. But yeah, that wasn't hard. It was just extremely humiliating. By the way, I can say congratulations all day long now. I can nail it every time.
You just need that one moment.
Yeah. I was saying it fine when the camera is behind my back, and then they came in for my close-up, and the lens is like right here, and all of a sudden say was congratulations to this guy because he just won a medal. And I just couldn't say it.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
when you have, I know that a lot of people get on set, and sometimes you have like kind of a brain fart. You forget things. How do you overcome that?
Well, that day I didn't. The director said, "Moving on,"
Right.
because I just couldn't say it. We tried like 4 times. My brain just could not grasp the
Well,
congratulations. But that's the only time that's ever happened to me in front of a camera in acting class. A few times early on in my first few days of being in acting class, I froze up.
right.
And it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. You have, in this particular acting class, there's like 20 people and they're staring at you, and my brain just went blank, like nothing. I wasn't even close to remembering the dialogue.
Oh, wow.
But luckily that was just an acting class. So, it's never happened really since then.
Oh, wow. So, we kind of talked about your role in Vindication. How did you get from being a background actor to this lead role that you're now doing in Vindication? How did that come about?
Well, but after I was a background actor, I ended up having several other, after Hannah's Gold, and there was a lot of other things. I was on Better
Right.
Call Saul and Night Shift, Leftovers on HBO. I had done a lot of other things before Vindication came along, but he had a posting on an actor's website called Actors Access, and I was on there one day just messing around. Most of my roles come through my agent, but when I have time, I'll go on to Actors Access, and there are jobs posted on there. They're usually not the higher paying things. A lot of them are not SAG related and all that, but there are good jobs on there. And I found Vindication, and I submitted for it and auditioned for it, and that's how I got it.
Awesome. So, and you're doing a great job with that role. One of the things that I wish that my audience could saw was when we did that Zoom meeting, and Jared showed that scene with you and your on television wife. You talk about living in the moment, and then he lets you guys kind of ad lib, that scene. Kind of go into kind of what was that like?
Jared doesn't really do that a lot. So yeah, he came back into our little holding area before we did that final scene or final shot. And he said, "You guys just ad lib, just go at it."
Right.
And I got really excited. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. It's kind of like an actor's dream to be able to just go crazy on improv.
Right.
Her and I didn't discuss it at all. She kind of went over to the corner and got into her little zone. And I kind of just stood there because I don't get into a zone too often. I just sit there. I sat there waiting for her, and she came back, and we went out there and we did it. It was amazing. She was incredible. She just locked eyes with me and just went on and ripping me a new one. And I kind of took it and begged her for forgiveness. And I felt like I was in it was real. It was real for those 30 seconds or whatever it was. It was pretty incredible. She had tears coming down her cheeks and everything. And it was a very surreal moment for me. Unfortunately, it couldn't be used because they only shot it from that one angle. So the whole thing, back of my head or side of my head, I don't think he realized how dynamic that was. Otherwise, they would have cameras around and done it again. But if we had done it 2 or 3 more times, it may not have been as great, because by then it's not really improv at that point if you're doing it several times.
Right. Because like you were saying, be able to do it in the moment, and catch that magic, at the time.
Yeah.
So tell my audience a little bit about your character in Vindication.
Well, I play Chief Bill Tomlinson. Season 1, I'm kind of a normal guy. I'm a tough boss, but I'm not corrupt. I'm just a normal, tough kind of cop.
Right.
And then season 2, I start getting a little bit rougher. And then season 3, I'm totally corrupt and as bad as they come.
Right.
So what happens is my wife leaves me. My wife, Kay, she leaves me because she's sick of being married to a cop, the stress, just all that stuff. I'm never home. She decides to leave me. Then over the course of, I don't know how much time goes by. I don't remember what the script said, but she has a health issue. and we're assuming it's a stroke. And even though we are separated or perhaps divorced at that point, I put her into a healthcare center that is very expensive. It's the best of the best. And I can't afford it on a cop salary. So that's why I start to take some money on the side and dabble in some shenanigans. So that's initially why Bill goes bad.
Right.
To support his ex-wife and make sure she gets the best care possible. I think he takes it a step too far, obviously. I think maybe he gets addicted to the power and the money, things of that sort. And things snowball downhill from there for him, you know, to his ultimate demise at the end of season 3 when I get arrested.
Right.
So, yeah, well, that's the arc of Bill Tomlinson.
Right. And you do such a great job at it too. And you know, this is one of the things I talked to Jared about is I love the way that the show has progressed from season 1. You know, when Jared first did the show, it was kind of a you know, it was a lot about Todd Terry's character, Detective Travis, and you'd have people come in, and it was like one and done stories, and then they started developing the characters. They started introducing characters, and then watching the characters grow from season 1 to season 2 to season 3. Yeah, I told Jared this is one of those shows that I think that then gets better than the next season. You know, and they've done a great job with the development of each of the characters. And Chief Tomlinson is the same. You know, his character, watching him grow, like you said, from kind of a normal guy. You know, he gave you know, Detective Travis a little bit of a hard time in the beginning, but you know, then they become almost arch enemies. You know, I thought that was great, and you know, on how they've changed the characters in the writing process.
Yeah, Jared didn't really have a choice in season 1. Like you said, it was standalone episodes.
Right.
So the beginning episode, there'd be a dilemma, and you know, a guy who's kind of bad or maybe not bad. You don't really know. And then by the end of the episode, he was vindicated.
Right.
And you can't do that. You can only do that so many times, because when people episode, they're gonna go, well, obviously this guy's gonna get vindicated by the end of the show. You can only do that so much, and he realized that. So that's what sparked this whole thing of carrying on from episode to episode to episode, and so on. Because it wouldn't have worked, and he knew that. You can't keep doing that if it's that cookie cutter type plot like that. Everyone knows what's going to happen. So that's why it evolved into what it is today. And you know, they're filming season 4 right now. I think they're on a hiatus right now, but I'm not in season 4 because, as you recall, I get arrested and sent off to the big house. But yeah, but I've heard things are great. Things are great. The new season's just as good as the other 3. So look forward to seeing it.
Cool. I'm hoping they bring your character back at some point, because you know, your character is such a great character. So you know, one of the things that I mentioned, you know, during that Zoom, one of my favorite scenes is in the end of season 2. You know, when Detective Travis is about to kind of concede, which, you know, leading up to that, I always felt that Detective Travis was going to become the chief of police. And so Jared kind of threw a wrench in it and decided that he was going to have Detective Travis concede and, you know, endorse your character, you know. And then the response that you had on season 3, I think that to me was a huge pivot point of the show. When you got that script, and I asked you this before, but when you got that script, what was your reaction when you read that?
A panic, because there was like 2 pages of dialogue, just me. It was that particular scene is the most dialogue I've ever had in anything in my entire career. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of dialogue. It was just me standing up at the podium, just rambling on for, you know, 5-6 minutes, whatever. But, you know, it worked out fantastic. I made it through it. We did several takes, and I think I did pretty well on every single take. What helps is, you know, so I'm facing the council members and the mayor up front here, talk to them. And then when I turn around, look at Todd and his wife, they're giving me a look of disgust.
Right.
helps me get more into my characters. So if you recall, in the beginning, I'm a nice guy. I'm saying Travis is my friend. I consider him a friend, and all this stuff. And then I start nailing them one at a time with all these things. And I turn around, they're glaring at me, giving me the stare of death. That helped me get more into it. And it was a blast. Yeah. It's probably the most fun scene I've ever done in my career. Just because I was so happy at how it turned out, because it was 2 pages of dialogue, and I was worried that I was going to screw it up, and I didn't. And the whole scene just turned out really well.
Right. And you're saying it's 2 page dialogue, but that whole dialogue, all the things that you said, and like you said, you started off with, Travis is my friend, and then you go into this whole, snowball effect of,
yeah, he's my friend. However,
right, and then you completely like stab him in the back. The character, totally stabs him in the back and brings up all these things about him and his family, and I think
in season 3, I come up to him. We have a confrontation where I'm explaining why I did that that day, and I tell him I did it for him because everyone on the council, all the council members, already knew all the stuff that I said. So I was just beating them to the punch, being his friend. but he didn't buy it. He didn't buy it.
Right. But to me, that was like the pivot point character, that he started turning, from, is when he started turning corrupt. You know what I mean? That's when I think as an audience member, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this guy is a bad guy now.
Yeah, there was no turning back at that point, obviously.
Right. So now season 3 looked like it was a blast to do. Tell us a little bit about season 3 and kind of development of your character in that.
Well, I was excited every time the script arrived. It comes email, and I'd open it up, and I was just so excited every time because every episode I just got worse and worse and worse.
Right.
I just became more corrupt. The things that he had me doing was just a blast. It was appalling, but fun at the time. And a lot of people are like, well, how can you go from being normal to so corrupt so fast?
Right.
But that's what's great about Jared, how he sprinkled in the backstory. Like I said earlier,
right.
I did it out of need for the woman that I loved. Even though she dumped me, I still loved my Kay, my ex-wife. And, the things you do for love, right?
Right. In TC kind of brought this up too in the Zoom call about the action sequence, towards the end. How you guys were able to bring in, the gunfight scene and all that. How did you feel about that?
I didn't really have any action scenes at all until that final episode where TC throws me on the ground, handcuffs me. I was just able to just walk around, be Bill. Yeah, I didn't have any action per se, not like those guys did.
Right.
TC was referring to the other night where he took that rifle away from that guy, and that was amazing. Like I watched that, I rewound that probably 10 times, thinking, how in the world did he do that? Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I don't know if you call it a stunt or not, but he's like reached out, finagled his arms. All of a sudden, he had the rifle. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Well, I thought that you guys did great with that because, normally growing up watching faith-based films, they've always been cheesy, and they were, they've always been, I don't say preachy, but there a lot of it's unrealistic. And one of the things I really like about Vindication is it's none of that. It's a good, clean, cop show. And it's faith-based, with this message, but it doesn't pound the message over your head with, what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it is faith-based, but it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't shove the whole concept down your throat. So I think, if you're a Christian, you would love it. And if you're a non-Christian, you still would love it. The thing is, there's a barrier there you have to break through sometimes. Some people read the synopsis and they see, faith-based crime drama. And it puts up a barrier, I think, for some people if they're not into that.
Right.
But can get them to break through that barrier, it's religious-y, but not over the top religious-y. Like, you don't have to be into faith-based to enjoy it at all.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the mistake that a lot of faith-based TV and films make. It's over the top. It's cookie cutter plots, trying to be too pure, too innocent. Jared's writing is great. He comes, it's faith-based, but there's a line of inappropriate and appropriate, and he walks right up to it, maybe sticks his toe over a little bit to test it, and then he goes back. He never crosses that line totally, which, I think there was a couple episodes that weren't allowed in some faith-based film festivals because they didn't think the content was appropriate. Wow. But I think they were wrong, and that's their loss, because he never goes over that line at all. And he deals with real world problems, and every episode, everything that happens is real world problems.
Right.
What's the point in watching something if it's all sugar coated and not real world?
Exactly.
Sticking your head in the sand, and that's no way to live.
Right. And that's I've talked to him about this too, is that I like that he brings up things that a lot of other Christian shows don't like to bring up, like his Detective Travis's daughter being addicted to drugs, an ex-addict, and the things that Cameron Arnett's character had to go through, and and like you say, he doesn't go over the line, but it's still stuff that happens in families, you know what I mean? And he's not afraid to deal with it. I really enjoyed that part of the aspect of the show too.
Yeah, I think it reaches a wide range of audience.
Right.
Whether you're a Christian viewer or not, I think you can really enjoy it if you just give it a chance. And, hopefully it'll end up being on Netflix or Hulu or something, wider audience, cast a wider net. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'm hoping too. I'm hoping that the deal that he's working with Amazon or Netflix or whoever, they pick it up, because we need more shows like this, on television.
Yeah, it's everyone who watches it likes it. You just got to give it a chance.
Right.
Right now, it's kind of hard to find. Not everybody, the average person on the street doesn't subscribe to Redeem TV or Pure Flix. I mean, they're growing every single day, but the average person, is not aware of those two streaming services. Hopefully, that will change over the next few years as it grows and grows. That's why it needs to get on a bigger platform so more people have access to it. And I think it's going to get there.
Cool. So let me ask you, through the host 3 seasons, what's been your toughest role or the toughest scene that you've done in that?
Probably one when I'm visiting my wife at the mental care, memory care center or whatever it is. It never really says, but so we're assuming that she had a stroke. And so she's in a catatonic state, kind of just sitting there, drooling and not being able to talk and just staring straight ahead. And that was kind of a tough thing for me. She was a great actress, great actor, the way that she portrayed that scene that day. But because my mother-in-law at the time was in a memory care center at the same time in that same state of mind. So, I was there with this actor, and my mother-in-law was, 20 miles away in another center in that same type of situation. So, and then also during season 3, I had a stroke when we were filming episode 4. I actually had a stroke that month. I had an eye stroke. And then we were filming either Friday or Saturday. I don't know. Like 4 or 5 days later, I had to film a scene, and I was blind in my left. So, I had a stroke. I'm still blind in my left eye. As a matter of fact, I never did recover from it. So that day, I had my mother-in-law. I have my situation where I had a stroke, and I'm dealing with my ex-wife here. And it was a very dynamic day. There was a lot of things going on in that scene. It was very easy to get emotional, I had the tears flowing a little bit, and not a lot, because I don't think Bill Thomason would sit there and bawl. So, I kept it as subtle as Bill would. And, it was a tough one. But I think it turned out pretty well, though.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that whole, whenever we talked about that in the Zoom call, I never really kind of realized Bill's backstory with his wife. and then as a a fan of the show or the audience, I started understanding how Bill has become the person he became. And
Yes,
started making
well,
me feel bad for your character, man.
that episode I'm talking about, when I'm
Yeah,
feeding my wife, spoon feeding her, and then
right,
the hospital administrator has me come up to the door,
right,
talk to her, and she tells me that I have a balance, that
right,
I'm way past due, and I look at her and I say, "Don't worry, I'll get it." And that's
right,
a key moment. Don't worry, I'll get it. And that's when I really become bad.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. But you've been doing a great job. And one of the things too that you mentioned uh, at the beginning of the Zoom is the negative feedback that you gotten. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, like on Facebook, the Vindy pages and all those different things. People
Right,
would go there saying very, very rude things about my character. I understand they realize I'm just a character,
right,
but that's pretty. It was pretty cool for me because it meant that I was hitting the mark. I
right,
was touching nerves. If those comments weren't on there about how much they hated my character, then I wasn't doing my job. Obviously, I
right,
I wasn't supposed to be lovable.
right,
I was supposed to be the hated character, which I think most series need a guy like that.
right.
And my wife had fun with it. She would reply to some of those people on there saying, "Oh, he's not that bad in real life," and stuff like that.
Right.
But that was pretty fun.
And there's villains that in shows that stick out, and like I was thinking about Negan in Fear of the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
There's shows that you watch and you're just like, man, I can't wait for that guy to get his. I know even with like the Fear of Walking Dead with Negan, I would because it was all pre-recorded, and I was kind of been trying to catch up. So there'd be times I would actually Google to see what the episodes were before he would actually get his.
You
You can't do that with Vindication.
I stopped watching Walking Dead a few years ago, but I was just like you, waiting for him to get his due. Did he ever get it?
I don't think he did.
I don't think he
You know,
did either, because he was such a pivotal character. They didn't want to kill him off.
right?
Yeah.
Well, they end up making him going from this guy that you just wanted him to something to happen to him, and then he ended up becoming like friends.
Oh,
And helping the group. And then you're like, oh, this guy's not so bad, and then you kind of start rooting for the guy. I'm like, how did that happen?
yeah. That's funny.
And
Well,
I kind of see that a lot with your character. Now
well, as of right now, I'm sitting in a jail cell somewhere for murder. So we'll see where Jared takes it.
right. So, but Jared, you got to bring him back on, Jared. So, but yeah, man. So, where do you so where do you see yourself going now from this point?
Well, as an actor, you just keep auditioning.
Right.
Auditions have really dried up here in the last month. During the strike, it was bad.
Right.
It's worse now. The auditions trickle in. I had one a week ago. I got one I'm going to do here in a couple hours. But yeah, it's been really rough. I don't know what's going on out there in the industry, but it's not just where I live here in Texas, but it's nationwide. LA's suffering too. There's just not a lot of work right now. So you just hope that changes.
Right.
I have a thing on my office wall that says you're only one audition away from changing your life forever.
Right.
I look at it every day, and it's true. I could get an audition tomorrow to be a series regular.
Right.
And I have had those auditions in the past for
Right.
major roles, General Hospital and major network TV shows. I've auditioned for those things. You book something like that, it's life changing, and you're only one audition away. And that's that acting carrot. That carrot's dangling in front of you at all times. You keep chasing that carrot, and it'll drive you crazy a little bit, but that's what keeps you going. All right, now I'm just I don't have anything coming up other than hopefully some more auditions. I have 2 movies coming out this year that I look forward to, and they're both going to be pretty big hits, I think. So that helps get your name out there and more recognition.
Well, cool. So, is there a specific role that you would love to play?
Well, I'd love to be a lead in a network series. But my phone is not ringing off the hook on that, though. I've never done a comedy. I mean, I've done things that have comedic tones to it,
Right.
but I've never been in a comedy before. Everything is always dramatic. It's war, it's mayhem, it's drama, and emotions. But I've never been in a true comedy before, so I wouldn't mind giving that a whirl. I'm not. I'm funny. I'm not like outlandishly funny. I'm subtly funny, sarcastic funny, and I think it works for me. So I'd like to give that a shot sometime.
Cool. Yeah, and I can see you definitely like on a show like Yellowstone or like Kings of Tulsa. It's like a Stallone type character. I mean, there's a lot of roles out there.
I've auditioned for both of them several times. Tulsa King, couple auditions. I was one-on-one with Sylvester Stallone. I was like, oh, that'd be so awesome to get that. And, and then, like I said earlier, when the show aired, the guy they hired was nothing like me. Maybe 30 years younger, cowboy beard. So, that's like I said, you can't take it personal.
Right.
They go a different direction at the last second. No matter what I do, I can't look 25.
Right.
I can try, but I'm not going to look 25 no matter what I do. If they want a 25-year-old cowboy, it ain't going to be me.
But with a lot of the movies now, I mean, there's a lot of roles for I would say a character your age, but like like what Stallone and Kevin Costner's doing. I mean, these guys still play tough guys, and they're older, and the shows work. Yeah,
I usually play military, cop, tough guys like that. At some point, I'm going to start playing retired military, retired cop, retired tough guy. I'm on the cusp of that right now. I'll get audition notices sometimes for playing grandpa. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a granddad in real life, but that's a low blow.
But cool, man. So now you said you mentioned a couple of the movies. Is there any? Well, first of all, let's talk about some of the other movies that you've done. That way, somebody could come back and check and not check, but go watch some of the stuff that you've been in. And then the movies that you have coming, are you able to talk about those there?
Oh yeah, as far as I know, I don't think I signed anything with them. I don't think it's top secret. The biggest thing that I've been in that's still out there is called The Hunt. It's on. I mentioned it earlier. It's on HBO Peacock right now. Universal Studios, big time production. A lot of people in it. Hilary Swank, Betty Gilpin, Emma Roberts, Justin. I forgot Justin's last name, but there's a bunch of big names in it. And it's a pretty big hit. I think it'll become a cult hit. It's one of those movies that probably is not going to go away for a long time because it's a really fun movie to watch. And when you read the synopsis, it made some people mad. In fact, Donald Trump even tweeted about it when it first came out and caused all kinds of drama. But it's about a bunch of rich liberals who kidnap a bunch of Bubba type people, and they turn them loose in the woods and they hunt them for sport.
Oh, wow.
And, Trump found out about it, and all heck broke loose. But in the end, it's not what you think it is, and make everyone's happy in the end. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, it doesn't really matter. The movie was just fun for everyone who watched it, and it's been doing really well. And I think it's one of those movies you'll watch 20 years from now. It'll be TV forever. But that's my biggest thing that I've been in. I was in Better Call Saul and Leftovers on HBO. Did a couple episodes of that. I was in Walker, the new Walker Ranger episode. So you can watch those. But the two things have coming out are pretty exciting. The first one's called The Senior, and it's a true story, and it's an awesome story. It's about a guy who got kicked out of college when he was like 20 years old. He was playing football, and he was going into his senior year, and he kept getting in fights with his teammates and bar fights. So he got kicked off the team and kicked out of school. Then fast forward, when he was 60 years old, he was having a little reunion with some friends he went to college with, and they talked him into going back to school and finishing senior year. And he played football, and it's a true story. He went to Solvall State out in West Texas.
Oh, wow.
60 years old, he played his senior year. So, it's a clever name, The Senior. He's 60 years old, and he's a senior in college, The Senior. So,
Right.
yeah, and I play the coach who kicks him off the team when he's 20, 21 years old. But I think that movie's going to be pretty good. They had a mini premiere in Miami a few months ago, and
Right.
the reaction was pretty strong. And then the other movie is called The Short Game. It's a family film about a high school kid trying to get a golf scholarship
Okay.
at the University of Texas, and I play the Texas golf coach. And I think that's going to be a nice little hit too. I'm getting some good feedback about that one as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now, if someone wants to keep up with you, what's the best way for them to find you on like social media?
Well, SteveMokate.com is my website, and then I'm on Facebook and under my name, Steve Mokate. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm not hiding from anyone.
Right.
Yeah, come and get me.
Well, cool, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish you like the best of luck, man. All the stuff that you're doing. I like I said, your character on Vindication was was amazing, and we're gonna miss him in season 4. But hopefully Jared brings it back, and I have no doubt that you're gonna land another big role because like you did an amazing job.
Thank
And so
you.
somebody would be crazy not to bring you in and give you another lead role somewhere. So
I have an audition in about an hour from now. I'll tell them you said that.
tell them if they want me to write a recommendation or whatever, just show them the video. Tell them to watch the show.
I'll do that. Good advice. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time out and being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've had a great time, man. Be able to sit down and get to know you. And like I said, this is for you guys who haven't seen the show, definitely go watch the show. It's a great show to watch, and especially if you like binge watching shows. This is it's on season 3. They're about to do season 4. So if you haven't seen the show, go watch. Is the perfect time because season 4 will be here before you know it. So.
That's right.
But thanks again, brother, for being on.
You're welcome.
As things progress and you get another role, let me know so I can bring you back on and we can promote.
Yeah, actors love to sit around and talk about themselves.
Right. All right, cool. Well, guys, thank you guys for joining us today. Like I say, go check I'll check out those movies that Steve we talked about and check out Vindication. Until next time, remember, guys, you are uniquely designed with purpose, and always keep moving forward. Peace.